on to the really good stuff, budget matters. Ms. Gorman has a preliminary overview of 2016 budget. And Charlotte, when we're done, we expect you to explain all of it to us.
We'll let her have her training first.
Okay, as we typically do each spring, we're continuing our discussion regarding the budget throughout the spring. Started a few meetings ago. We approve certain components of the budget, and this is just another discussion, just to kind of let you know the building blocks of the budget. And again, this I referenced that this is related to our CSIP, goal number 5, which is governance. Actually, budget touches many of the CSIP goals. Just a little bit about kind of the budget in general and school finance. School finance, we're required to record our funds in the incidental fund, the teachers fund. We also have the debt service fund and the capital projects fund. Tonight, primarily, we're going to be talking about the operating balances. So that is the incidental fund and the teachers fund. The incidental fund, or Fund 1, primarily that keeps track of support staff salaries, any fuel, textbook purchases, supplies, utilities, those type of purchases. The Teachers Fund, or Fund 2, is used to track the compensation for our certificated staff, so that's salary and benefits for our teachers, and any tuition that we may pay to other districts. Sometimes you will hear us talk about the unrestricted fund balance. What we see on the board right now is the ASBR, and the ASBR stands for the Annual Secretary of the Board Report. We are required each August to submit to DESE a record of our prior year activity, and this is kind of the recap or the summary page on the ASBR. As you will note on the ASBR, it indicates what our unrestricted fund balance. We ended last year with an unrestricted fund balance of 36.08. The unrestricted fund balance is calculated by taking our ending fund balance in our general fund and our teachers fund, which last year was $13,326,000, and dividing that by the sum of the expenditures in those two funds. So that's where you come up with 36.08. The way we get to the ending fund balance, you have your beginning fund balance, which is a carry forward from last year. You add your revenues and subtract your expenditures. So you can kind of think of your fund balance as a savings account. That is the money that is left in your account at the end of the year.
Vicki, that was better than expected by approximately how much percentage?
We had budgeted originally, let's see, last year we had budgeted 29, so it ended 36. And I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit as we go through here, that yes, that typically occurs.
Right.
So this particular slide shows what our unrestricted fund balances have been over the past few years. We ended fiscal year 11 at 38.65, fiscal year 12 at 39, fiscal year 13 at 36.8, and fiscal year 14 at 36.08. And I think as I look at that, that's kind of what you want to see. You don't want to see major changes or major fluctuations. So I would say that this is good. After budget updates for fiscal year 15, right now we are it's budgeted at 31.07%. Now, as Tony had mentioned, historically we finish better than what we have budgeted. We take a conservative approach to budgeting where we conservatively budget our revenues, and our expenditures, we never spend more than what is budgeted, so we always come in under budget on our expenditures. So as I review the budget through actual results through March, then I am projecting that our fund balance will end at 34.13. Now, as we reviewed this last year at this time, I was estimating that we would end fiscal year 14 at 34.5, and we actually ended, let's see, at 36.08. So I try to be conservative, so I think we will at least see 34.13. So this particular slide shows, again, what is budgeted currently and then what is being projected as we end fiscal year 15. Of course, we still have 3 months to go, and we will see what the results are in July. Last month I had focused on, last meeting, had focused on the state revenue budget and how that impacts our district. And as we had reviewed at that meeting, the 3 largest revenue sources for the school district are local property taxes, the state foundation formula, and Proposition C. A few changes have taken place since our last meeting. The first being that our local property tax will increase because of the passage of the levy. And also the foundation formula, the Senate, the state Senate passed House Bill 2 with some changes and put additional funding towards the foundation formula. Now, it's because there are differences between the House and the Senate, it still has to go through conference, so we're not finished yet. But with the additional revenues that were put in by the state, that has now moved our state adequacy target up to 6,090. Last meeting I had projected 6,076. So we are seeing a little bit more revenue from the state. This particular slide just kind of wanted to show you the trend from our major revenue sources. And as you can see from this slide, and this goes back to fiscal year 02, we are more dependent on our local revenue and less dependent or less support from the state. We've talked about that, but as you can see, 12 years ago, we were getting 45% of our revenue from the state. And that is now, last year, our actual results were about 38% from the state. So it's shifting more to our local taxpayers supporting the district. Fiscal year 14, this is just the same information in a pie chart. Again, these are the actual results for fiscal year 14. Our local percentage was actually greater than the state. Local revenues contributed 39.8% and the state 37.6%. Our budget for fiscal year 2015, our current budget, the largest single source of revenue is from the basic foundation formula at 33.47. Second largest single source is property taxes at 29.82. This particular graph, we had discussed at last meeting that the Prop C has recovered. Fiscal year 10, we saw, it had dropped dramatically. We are seeing that rebound. Not seeing a great increase projected for next year, but just a slight increase from where we currently are. I had talked a little bit about our local property tax, and again, for next fiscal year, we will see a 10-cent increase as compared with fiscal year 15. Weighted average daily attendance. This is the component that goes in, one of the components that go towards the calculation of the state foundation formula. And couple of things I wanted to point out on this particular slide. The weighted average daily attendance takes our attendance from our school year, starts with that, adds summer school. Next year I'm estimating, or for this upcoming summer school, that we will have about 90 ADA. Last year we had 94. We get additional weights for various students, types of students. The first being free and reduced students. Any student, okay, the threshold for free and reduced is 41%. So the number of students that you have greater than 41% of your ADA, you get an additional weight for that. We also get additional weight for special education. However, we don't meet the threshold, so we, because we're under 480 students for special ed, we don't get any additional weighted ADA for that. Our limited English proficient students, we do have, we receive 7 additional ADA for that. So the total for next year that we are estimating is 3,942. So that weighted ADA then becomes a component, the top line for our foundation formula calculation. And this is where you see the new update for the state adequacy target at $6,090. As we discussed at last meeting, we no longer have a proration at the bottom of this calculation. The state adequacy target is adjusted, and that is, in essence, our proration for the foundation formula. Again, I think we pointed this out at last meeting. This is, because this is 100%, does not mean the formula is fully funded.
Thank you.
A fully funded
Say that-
formula.
Say that again, please.
Yeah.
Yes, just because this is 100% does not mean it's a fully funded formula. If it was fully funded, the state adequacy target, instead of 6,090, it would be 6,716, which would be an additional $2.7 million for our school district. So far from fully funded. I've updated this slide to show the comparison between what is estimated currently for fiscal year 16 as compared to our fiscal year 15 estimate. So revenues from our 3 major sources, we're expecting an additional $629,000.
And that has the tax increase, potential tax
It does.
increase put in there, right?
Yes, so 357. Okay, now moving to the operating expenditures. Fiscal year 15, and this is again looking just at Fund 1 and 2, taking out the debt service and the capital projects fund. As we have talked about before, salary and benefits comprise over 80% of our total operating expenditures. So that's where most of the expenditures lie. So, given that, here are our impacts to fiscal year 16. If we were to have a 10% increase in health insurance, that's not a given yet, but that's an estimate. We are struggling a little bit in our insurance reserve. We are seeing higher claims, and our reserve is declining. So we do anticipate that there will be some changes and increases to our health insurance. So if we were to build in 10%, that would be $21,000 impact to our budget. That's incremental. Movement on the salary schedule. So giving everybody a step increase, that is $318,000. And then each percentage base change, so 1% change to the base, is $274,000, okay? So those are our major changes to the budget for next year if we were to get these various changes. Okay, just to talk a little bit about our budget process. We do have annual meetings with our principals and our directors of each of the programs. We look for opportunities. Are there any efficiencies that can be gained? Are there needs out there that we need to address? And we note all of those and then review and then go back to the principals and directors and for further discussion. We also review annually the staffing needs. What is the projected enrollment in each of the grade levels, and do we need to make staffing changes, additional staff, perhaps shifting staff based on student enrollment? Anytime there is an open position, try to take that opportunity to review and try to determine, is there any different way to address that open position, not just automatically fill a position. Additionally, meet with the salary and welfare committees and the supporting student success staff committee, so the support staff committee. Also, just a schedule. The final approval of the budget is done in June. We're required to do that prior to June 30th. Our meeting this year, we are anticipating we will have the final fiscal year 16 budget approval at our June 11th meeting. At the March 5th meeting, you approved supply, textbook, and equipment budget, which is a component of the budget. At our next meeting, we plan to present the building and grounds and also make a salary recommendation. So just to kind of let you know what's upcoming at some future meetings. I wanted to, again, kind of just show where we are as far as budgeted for fiscal year 15 and also projected. And, I've commented many times, we are in good financial position. It is very sound, but I think it's important that we continue to keep our eye focused and always make effective use of our tax dollars that are entrusted to the school district. And, just remain diligent that we are looking for any opportunities to be as efficient as we possibly can. The budget that we will present will probably ask you to approve a budget that will be utilizing reserves, which we have in the past, but as you've noted, historically, we don't reach the levels that we have asked you to approve. So we're trying to slowly use some of those reserves and not, dip into those very quickly. So just kind of wanted to point that out. Questions or comments that?
And the red flag fund balance is in, what is it?
Are you asking me, or what is it? So we have a
No,
policy
not your,
that
well, I'm sorry, what's it state?
So we have a policy that says that at 17%, we will make budget cuts. We won't go below 17%. I'm probably less, I would say more like 20. But I would be
You'd be
That's
losing
me.
sleep way before that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will. But
I
that's
appreciate
me,
your
so.
conservatism.
Yeah, very much so. Any
Other questions?
questions for Mr. Harlan?
No?
Question?
We'll talk later.
I know Charlotte.
How am I
said it
supposed to
first.
see all those little tiny lines from here?
Well, and yeah, Dr. Zales told me I needed to make some font bigger, so I will work on that, so.
We'll talk.
Okay.
I'm sure.
One-on-one's a lot easier.